Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Superficial Spirit. I am here with somebody I've been waiting so long to interview. I'll read the official description on his Wikipedia. Michael Venus is a Canadian artist, actor, and producer. And then there's like 5 paragraphs. So we'll get into the 5 paragraph. But Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my God, am I on screen already? Yes.
Yes.
Peter, I love you. This is my very first podcast. I've always said
Oh,
no.
you actually said no to me a few times,
I
like
know.
T.
Well, yeah. Now there's stuff to talk about. It's a new year, new era, new
Yeah.
him, who dat.
Well, it's interesting you say that there's things to talk about now because when I wanted to interview, like, I think when I first started the podcast, you were like top of my list. I know I interviewed Mark Kenneth Woods. Oh my God, I felt so bad. I interviewed him. We had the best conversation. My computer died. I lost so many interviews, including Jaylene Time. And I felt bad. I didn't want him to think it was on purpose. So I'm thinking maybe now that I'm talking to you, I can interview him again to talk about the documentary. But the reason why I first reached out to you is because I've always looked at you as like like a nightlife icon for sure. And I didn't feel like there needed to be a recent thing. I know you were like, well, let's wait until I have a project, but I'm like, you have so many fucking things to talk about, bitch.
It's true. There's a lot to go over.
There
But
is.
how is this monumental moment coming back to Vancouver as I'm chewing on a mint? See, I'm not podcast
Hey,
ready.
no, Brittany chews on gum in every interview, so
It's my
you're
zing.
fine. Yeah. Yes, it's a big moment for you. You are making your big return. We've got the show at the Rio. And by the way, I have to thank you for reaching out and asking me to be a part of it. I've been wanting to go back for so long, but it's so scary to like, I guess, book your own thing and be like, I hope people care. So when you reached out to me, I felt very, very special. And so thank you.
I'm so excited. It's going to be such a reunion this
Hmm.
event. And so many people are coming from the past. Now I just found out my brother, his family, and my dad is coming. Yeah.
Whoa.
The Venus will
Whoa.
be in the house. Yeah, it's going to be really
Ah,
awesome. Dickie is coming all the way from Berlin. We've got people coming from New York, like obviously Vancouver Island and all over BC, Ontario. It's like seriously going to be so much fun.
yeah, Quana.
Juana,
Carlotta,
Carlotta.
yeah.
Yeah, Nina
Um,
Mercury, Simone. We've got some great performers. Yeah, which I'm sure we'll get into.
yeah. You mentioned it's a reunion, and I was just in Toronto for a week, and I was explaining to people that I was going back on the stage, and they're like, "Tell me about House of Venus," and I'm like, "It's a collective from like a generation before me when I got to Vancouver, and this show." Is very much like it feels nostalgic for me. I can't even imagine what it feels like for you, but it is a reunion. Like you are this force that's bringing all of these people together that hasn't happened in so long. How does that feel like coming back to Vancouver and doing that?
I am so excited. Vancouver has always been one of my homes, and in the last decade and a half, I haven't really spent too much time there. And COVID obviously played into that too. And I've been in Montreal. I just celebrated 9 years in Montreal. So I
Oh,
officially,
wow.
yeah, crazy. I officially left Vancouver in like 2012 and had gone back a few times. We were filming The Face of Furry Creek. We were doing Wiggles that you were in, things
Yep.
like that. And then I guess 10 years ago is when we did Wiggle 20. And it was the Wiggle weekend
That's so crazy.
at the Vancouver Art Gallery. And then we also did it at the Fox Cabaret. And so that's the last time I've done a show and a party in Vancouver, which is crazy because there was a point where I was doing 4 parties a week.
Yes, I remember. How do you feel like coming back after so long? Because my little part in Wiggle feels like there's a lot of mental gymnastics to go through coming back and being like, it was so cool at one moment. Are people gonna, I'm talking about me, at one moment, are people gonna care anymore? How do you like, what goes on in your brain when you're like, okay, 30th year, I'm coming back? Like, do you get nervous about the reaction? Do you get nervous about like, what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. There's a vulnerable element, but it's also,
Hmm.
the bigger thing is just like I've been wanting to do this for so long. It's like such a good excuse for people to come together and to celebrate, with the film as well as the performances. It's Wiggle 30. I mean, Wiggle
It's
didn't
crazy.
start in Vancouver, but we started Wiggle in 1992, did it in Windsor, Ontario, and then we did it in Detroit. Then we did it in Windsor as our like, so long, we're off to Vancouver. And then the following year, we did it in Vancouver in 1996. And it was amazing at the Club Mars. And we had Perfidia, who is one of the boy bar beauties and a New York City legend, who's the wig, maestro at Patricia Field back in the day. And she was a huge drag queen. She's in Wigstock. She does Welcome to Havana, which is
Oh,
amazing.
nice.
So anyway, it's amazing. Like it's certainly a homecoming.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a way to celebrate, what the House of Venus did um, for so many years. But it is vulnerable because it's not only like we're just going to do a show and it's a hi, it's our comeback. It's like a film about
Yeah.
mine and my friends' lives that I made. So it does seem a little self-indulgent.
Yeah.
But it's really like, we documented, we archived, that's what I do. And it's, I think, at a very important time right now to show this to the world, what was happening back in the 90s. We have to celebrate our past. We have to know our past to move forward. And with drag's whole big, new explosion, it's kind of cool to show the younger generation, as well
Yeah.
as anyone who doesn't know about it, what was actually going on, because what we were doing was so amazing and, ahead of its time. And
Yeah.
it's going to be really neat to see it all together in Vancouver on stage with so many friends.
And also at an iconic venue, the Rio, which is like I've done a lot of stuff with Korean at the Rio. You're gonna love it. I know this is your first show there. It's so good. It's so good.
It's so crazy that I never have done anything there. I think what happened basically is I was like on the outs of Vancouver when that all started, and then I was busy with maybe 560 at that point, and just for some reason,
Oh my God, 560.
560, 560. But I remember you had brought in James St. James was your first.
Okay. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
glad you brought up James St. James Bridge because okay. This is a very big piece of my mind, and I think about this a lot. And when I was reading your Wikipedia and like reminding myself of all the things you've done, it validated this idea, which is that when I was talking to James, James was on the show. He also came to Vancouver. Um, I've always, and I think a lot of Canadians had this hyper focus on the New York Club Kids, Andy Warhol, people like Amanda Lepore. And when I think back to my time in Vancouver, which was like mid 2000s to like now, um, there was and is a group of people, a group of creative people that are just as influential and creative as the New York City scene was, but we were Canadian. And when I think of you, I think of I like Michael Alex a murderer, so an RIP. I don't want to compare you to him, but the energy of the Club Kids, like what you were doing at that time was pioneering a new time of nightlife in Canada. And that was one of the biggest things I want to talk to you about. Like when it was the early 90s and you were coming up with House of Venus and you started to do Wiggle, and I know you did Wigstock in New York. Was there uh a conscious inspiration or a relationship between what was going on in New York and what you were trying to do in Canada
Oh,
or did in Canada?
100%. 100%. And it's super evident in the film. And we talk about that in the film as well. Um,
Mm.
I had moved, I think had just turned 18 and moved to Windsor because I was there and saw, I had met Eddie and Greg and David and Angeline, who are other House of Venus founders. And they were working at this boutique called Noir Leather and had just opened in Windsor. And so I went there from London, Ontario, where I was going to high school, and was just like, oh my God, it's so cool. And we went to Detroit. I was like, oh my God, you can take the city bus and you're in Detroit. So crazy. And so when I moved to Windsor, we were always in Detroit, but this is like 92 now when I went
Yeah.
for the very first time to New York City. Oh my God,
Wow.
it was just blown. The very first club I went to was Palladium, and we ended up at Grace Jones's private party for Boomerang, and I forget what the bar was called in the Palladium. And this gorgeous black woman kept kind of banging into me, and she was with two women with the crowns on it. They were dancing, and then I was like, "Oh my God, it's Grace Jones!"
Oh
I believe
my
it.
God.
And a few minutes before that, we had met the party promoter for that night, which was Michael Ailig, who gave me a big kiss on the cheek
What?
and was super sweet. And I was like, I had, watched Geraldo. So I knew who he was and was obsessed. So it was just like, that was my like introduction to New York City when I was like 18.
Oh,
So
okay.
really,
Okay.
he wanted to take that energy because it was so thriving at that period, the nightlife. It was so international, but it was just like this other Never Neverland world. And I couldn't believe it was real. And Patricia Field, her boutique played a big part in that too, like where Amanda Lepore and all the gorgeous trans women were working, and the club kids and the rock stars would shop there. Super cool. So we very much like wanted to bring that energy back to Windsor. Hence, we had heard about Wigstock, so that's why we formed this, started doing Venus parties, because we wanted blue collar Windsor to be like New York City.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
that's
a
how
big
we would go back to New York all the time. We were there like 4 to 8 times a year, and that never changed. So New York was always, the pinnacle for inspiration. And it obviously stems from before that with the Warhol, the factory folks, and all of that. It's
Oh my
just,
God. It's like hearing you say this is so surreal. Michael Musto was also on the show and he was talking about how Courtney Love used to come to his house and like bang on the door, and he had like candid stories about like Rosie O'Donnell. Oh, not Rosie O'Donnell. Ellen and Rosie being in the closet, and this crazy New York scene of celebrity culture and how its effects still is obvious in pop culture. And I'm thinking about you going to those parties and having it right in your face and then coming back to Canada, and especially Windsor, girl. Like that's not even the big city. So when you were starting to create this, did you feel like it was possible to take that energy and successfully did it at the time? Because you were successful in like looking back, but at the time when you were bringing this culture back to Canada and Windsor, what was the reaction? How were people interacting with it?
people loved it. And again, we talk about it in the film. I mean, there was the whole arts community that where you're already involved in. And then we had Detroit folks that would come over to Windsor, because if you're in Detroit, you can't drink until you're 21. In Windsor, it was 19 or 18. So we automatically, it was people were bored. So we would start doing theme parties at different bars and clubs. And we were already doing stuff with Noir Leather. So like fashion shows in Detroit. So we are kind of built up a thing already, like a bit of a
Mhm.
community. We needed a name for it. And when we came up with Venus, we just knew automatically what we wanted to do. We had a really strong vision, and people were hungry for it. So it really took off really well. We had a whole generation of like younger Venus kids who were coming to the bar underage, but like fully dressed up and expressing themselves as a mate. We'd sneak them in because it's like,
Yeah,
I was
you need
underage.
that energy. Yeah.
So, and we would do that in Detroit too. We're putting on all these big fashion shows in Detroit where I'm like 18 and 19. Like I wasn't legally supposed to be there. But this is the time pre 9/11 where you would take the city bus under the tunnel from Windsor to Detroit. And I use my social insurance card as ID.
Whoa, not even a picture.
No, they didn't, like it was such a different time, such a different time. So
I'm think
automatically it just, yeah, it took off, and then we started doing more. Then we started designing clothes. So there was more of a fashion element, and we were experimenting with gender and performance. So there was that. And then we knew we wanted to, because we were doing fashion shows and parties. So we were like, like Wigstock, we wanted to build something that had a legacy. And I was in hair school, as was David, one of the other founders. So we came up with Wiggle, and then that started, and that just became even like our own, more of our own little private New York in our heads in Windsor.
yeah,
And then, we just kept
kept
going with
going.
going.
It's so one thing I talk about a lot on the podcast is the influence and effect that nightlife had on me, because my like when I was a teenager, it was Paris Hilton, Britney Spears, Courtney Love, like the blonde brigade, young Hollywood. And people laugh when I tell them like the tabloid culture affected me spiritually. Like I was so called to nightlife. And even though I was, I drank, I did drugs, I was wild. There was something really profound about that experience, and like similar to how that time in New York and Canada still like ripples out into now. Those days still define my life. So for you back then, did you feel like, okay, this is going to be the driving force for the rest of the art, my career? Did you feel like this was your calling?
Yeah, like at a very young age, like I knew when I started House of Venus, I think I was 19 with my
Mhm.
friends, and they were a little bit older. And then with Wiggle, I was 20. So I always had this like sort of long trajectory of where I wanted to take it, and knew that I at least wanted to make it 20 years. So when I'm 40, I've got some sort
Oh
of
my
like
God.
work, and it'll make me really famous or something. I don't know. I don't know what it,
Famous.
but I always knew that it was definitely a vehicle, just because there wasn't something. So if it's that saying, it's like, if you don't see what you want, you have to create it and do it. That's definitely
Yeah,
the mentality. We had a very do it yourself mentality, and yeah, it all just kind of
you did do it.
Yeah.
You did were you motivated by fame? Was that like the undercurrent that everybody wanted to be stars?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was part of it. That definitely part of it. We were interested in like developing our persona, right? Like again with the
Hmm.
Warhol thing, like all of the John Waters people, the New York scene, everyone kind of invented themselves. They had like different names and personas that they took upon themselves. So I don't know if it
Yeah.
was necessarily, I mean, yeah, we wanted to be famous on one level, but we wanted to um be paid for what we're doing, and we felt like we were put
Ah.
on this earth for something, and that was to create positive energy. And
Huh.
so that's why we did all of this. Yeah.
I love that. You've always been so good at combining. When I say chaos of nightlife, I don't mean necessarily like drugs and alcohol. I mean like it can be a very stimulating environment, period, even for sober people. You've done always a good job at bringing the art and thoughtfulness and vision to your events. What's the relationship between nightlife and art, and how did you continuously bring that back, even if the people at your parties and events were like fucking crazy, fame hungry club kids? How did you keep pairing the two?
That was always sort of it just kind of went together. Like we wanted to live our lives and that was our art. So it all kind of went together.
Mm.
But also nightclubs and bars back in that time were the freshest way to see new ideas and to come up with new concepts and were perfect venues to showcase your art. Whereas in a gallery setting, it was so stuffy. There's the whole politics of the art world. You have to like go to school for it. We're just like, what do you mean to be an artist? You can just be one. You never
Yeah.
really I don't like necessarily that you're supposed to do it this. I don't like that. I want to just, you do what you feel. And so for us, like I still believe, I mean, I'm in the art world now and running
Yeah.
galleries and all that stuff, which is interesting. But it was always for us, especially at that time, it was just a place to showcase our art. We were designing, with Wiggle, the headpieces, wearable art, performance art, and we were also a vehicle for our friends and other people. We gave them a platform to do the same. So I just feel like it was all kind of the same thing. It's for different forms of expression.
Yeah, it just kind of came naturally to you. Um, okay, so I'm remembering when I moved to Vancouver and I met Miss Cotton, with Jared, my best friend. Well, yeah, best friend back then, friend still now. And we were so enamored. Like you were so funny. The way that you spoke. Do you know that that YouTube video of Miss Cotton singing Happy Birthday, I still send that to people every year because it's so happy. Yeah, it's so fun. I'm not gonna try and do it. But tell me about the birth of Cotton. Like you started House of Venus, but she wasn't like part of it right away.
No, no. When we were doing more gender bending with the first Wiggles in
Mm.
Windsor and Detroit, and Luca Greg, who is the other main Venus girl and the first actual Venus drag person, Luca the Magic Woman. Uh,
Mm.
she started and hosted Wiggle, but again, it was more like alien bug drag. It wasn't like the.
Ah,
And then someone had done me up and like, drag at that time, other than what was going on in New York, I didn't really feel that was for me. Like when we'd see drag shows and they're doing Judy Garland or
yep.
Elijah Minute, I
Barbara.
love it. But I was like, I'm not that.
Yeah, totally.
And then we would go to New York and see people like Bunny or Miss Guy, and there was so many gorgeous queens. And then we did it in when we first moved to Vancouver. And I was like, oh my God, I look so good. I put on a blonde wig. I was like, oh my God. And basically, Luca, Jubilee, and myself who were the first Venus girls that had all moved to Vancouver. We guerrilla style, like jumped into the Pride Parade at the end. We made a big Mylar and jumped, and like they weren't gonna let us. We're like, as F. And we were like, I shaved off my eyebrows. We were just in little dresses and we were supermodels. And some people were just like, who are you people? Like, can you imagine being in Vancouver and then seeing that? Like, it was just like, anyway,
Ahead
so
of
that
its time for sure. Even
kind of
now, I feel like people would be like, wow.
yeah, so it just kind of started, and then the reception was so great that I just continued doing cotton.
Yeah.
It just kind of again snowballed and became this whole big thing with Cotton and the Venus Girls for, years and years.
Because Cotton was before like like I mean I guess Madonna was around, but I know what you're saying about the old school drag queens. Because when I was 18 and first went to the clubs in Calgary, it was very much like Judy, Barbara, It's
Classic
Raining
drag.
Man,
Classic
yeah,
drag. Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
drag.
And I love that style of drag, but for, a kid who was like always looking for something new and high fashion and stuff that didn't um, apply. When at that time, it was all about the supermodels, right? And RuPaul had just
Yes.
so RuPaul really was, ushered in so many different things for drag, and it became quite evident that you could look that gorgeous and become a pop star. So there was always like, oh, it could happen.
Yeah.
Um, but again, it was that New York influence of the supermodels and all of that. And
True,
my humorous inspirations as well. Like Cotton's definitely a kook.
definitely a kook. Definitely a kook. Yes. It's like the mix of like blonde bombshell and like not, well, you have done sketch comedy, but it's like that line between like sexy glamour and like outrageous
Clown.
woman. Yeah, clown. There you go. Yes, that's exactly how I experienced Cotton. And Vancouver at the time, like how did the other queens react to you? Because you were obviously bringing in a new vibe. House of Venus was, the vibe, the momentum, the new thing. How did the old guard receive you?
Yeah, the old guard did not love us, and we didn't care. And that's attitudey, and it's like, but we were like,
Attitude.
we were told from like everyone, not this, not this, you can't do this. And it's like, I've been told that my whole life. So it's like, I'm not giving a shit what this old drag queen thinks. So
Yeah.
we were lovely back as much as we try not to be bitchy and catty, and we welcome them to our parties if you want to come. But for the first year, they did not like us because we kind of just took over nightlife, right? And didn't care about the Dogwood Monarchist Society. We didn't care about all that stuff. Love it now, but like at that time, because Vancouver was very, it was a small town, and it was a little more what we thought kind of heck. So that's why we
Yeah.
thought the injection of House of Venus was needed and necessary. And of course, after people got to know us and we started booking these queens, they loved us, but it took some time for sure.
I felt even that when I came to Vancouver that there was just this excitement around things that were new and innovative, and it was like exciting for me because I came from Calgary, but when I look back, there was definitely like apart from the Venus Collective and like the people who were doing like underground raves, which was more for like the straight hipsters, um it was very white, very twinky, very like there was not a lot of diversity when I look back. And now there's a lot more representation, but it's crazy to think that in like the vanilla, like the slice of vanilla cake that Vancouver was before, you would ruffle feathers and I would ruffle feathers. I mean, I think that's because I was always fucked up yelling at people, but it's changed so much. Hey, like the evolution of nightlife, when you look at it now, it's like a completely different landscape. The tone of drag shows, the way that they promote parties, the way that they are trying to, bring in different types of people and spread a message of like, we're all connected, we're all together, we're all in on this. That's new, which is crazy to think.
Yeah, it is. That's interesting. I don't go to a lot of nightlife events anymore unless, I'm doing something. So I
Hmm.
don't know exactly, especially in Vancouver, what's going on, but I'm happy to see that there is still, cultural stuff happening.
Yeah, there is. There is. I was thinking as I was saying that I also haven't been out in a while. So this is all based on what I'm seeing on Instagram. So
What
hopefully
I
I'm getting
hear.
it right. Woo! Um, you also have done a lot of work without TV. And when I saw that happening again, I was like, how does this fucking bitch turn the nightlife and the art in-person events into like a TV career? Because you've done what? How many shows? You have House of Venus, The Face of Fury Creek, Deb and Cece, and documentaries, right? Like now you have yours
Yeah.
coming out.
We talk about that in the film too, like just sort of our progression. Like we started out as video art makers, and we were doing like Super 8 films and really kitschy fun stuff, just basically experimental films, and we would document everything. And Pride Vision had started, and we were already doing sketches. Mark Kenneth Woods had joined into the House of Venus fold, and we were doing more sketches, and we were interviewing different queer celebrities we were bringing to town. And Pride Vision had started, so we put it all together, and came up with the House of Venus show, and it was the world's first LGBTQ plus sketch comedy show,
Holy
which also
shit.
had interviews and other elements, a little bit of a variety aspect as well. And it ended up airing in like 13 countries all around the world. And I'd go to Europe and be recognized. It was so weird, so bizarre. Because it was a TV show made out of our bedrooms, basically, right? Like there was no budget, anything like that. But people were super hungry for queer content on television, because there wasn't any. I think Queer Eye might have just started. I don't even think
Oh
The Alt
God.
started. Will and Grace, like it was like a
Oh
fake
yeah.
guy, like so there was all that. So, and there was other queer television channels opening. So they all wanted to buy this content. And then, time changed. We did 3 seasons of that. And then we just kept doing the comedy stuff with Deb and Cece, Ace of Furry Creek, which is sort of exploring those characters more. We did those with where Mark and I play all the characters in the town, other than the other two actors, Amy Goodmurphy and Ryan Steele, who are also in it. Anyway, so that we did 2 seasons of that, and it's hilarious. Filmed in Whistler, right by
So
Furry
funny.
Creek Golf course. And then Mark and I both got more into documentary work. Our lives kind of took a switch. They got more serious. And at that point, the comedy for me had switched. I was doing documentaries, and then I moved to Montreal and was doing all that stuff. And then I made a couple documentaries while I was doing my 7 years at Never Apart in Montreal. And also we did a TV show, an arts and culture TV show called Never Apart TV, which you can still watch on their
Oh my
streaming.
God.
Yeah,
Just
and then
like
I've
a
got
regular TV star.
in Canada. Yeah.
I often feel like when I look at pop music specifically, there's this whole new era like Kim Petras, Troye Sivan. There's this really exciting thing happening in pop culture where openly LGBTQ plus folks are fucking making millions of dollars touring the world. They're in Gucci ads, like they're in mainstream culture. And I sometimes am a little resentful that if I was born 10 years earlier, then there may have been more longevity or a true opportunity to go a little bit farther. When you are on Netflix and you're seeing all this queer content and it's become so commercialized, RuPaul's Drag Race, do you ever feel like I could have been a millionaire if I was like a little bit later?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, those thoughts have crossed my mind where it's like, especially with the drag thing, it's like, oh, like, we had kind of just missed that big drag explosion that happened in the 90s where we were a little young. And then this whole thing happened too. And that's kind of when I stopped doing drag. Um, but shoulda, woulda, coulda, or what. I mean, you can dream all that, but it's like, it's not like we're dead. Like we can still do stuff.
Totally.
And I'm planning on doing more with all that. And so also it's like obviously there's different ways of looking at it, but it's like the time that we had, like the joy that we experienced, like I will never trade that in. And that's before cell phones, it's before like social media. And I'm glad. Like it's, I documented a lot, but for the majority of those times, it's in our memories. And it's this magical place that is so long gone.
I never thought about you as like a person who's archiving history, but now that you're saying it, you have been, and it's so important because if most young queer people don't have like a grandparent who is also queer, who's like, this was what the AIDS epidemic was. This is what, the 50s or 60s was. And until you meet people like when I met you, when I met other people in Vancouver, you sort of get a glimpse into like what set the tone for what your experience is in nightlife.
Yeah.
And now that you're archiving it, you're giving the younger generation a glimpse into what it used to be.
Yeah.
Was that like conscious? You were saving it as a way. I mean, you said you wanted to go to at least Wiggle 20 so that
Yeah.
you could look back. Was it a why? Why was this passion about saving it? What was
No,
the
I don't really know, but I just knew like if we're gonna make it, like save it. And I knew eventually that it would be somewhat of I don't know, I just inherently knew to do
intuitively?
that.
Yeah.
I trust everything on my intuition.
Everything?
Pretty much. Yeah. Like
Oh
that's
my God.
guides me. Yeah, intuition.
That's impressive. I've done that. It's paid off. Sometimes it hasn't, but I guess that's the life of an artist too, right? Like you have to channel that whatever wherever it's coming from.
Our conduits channeling information from the universe. We literally
She's a
are.
witch. Yeah,
It's a
totally.
no
Tell
denying.
me, tell me about what you think about social media, the way that it's affected pop culture, nightlife, celebrity. This is something I talked to James St. James about. And when he was at the Rio, somebody was like, how do we have an underground scene in Vancouver? He's like, honestly, I don't know if you can because of social media. It's hard to keep things a secret. What have you observed over the last 10, 15 years since, Facebook came and Instagram, TikTok?
Well, I mean the mystique is definitely gone with artists. Like I used to, you would have these ideas of what this artist is like and what they're doing, and now it's kind of ruined because it's like all on line for you to watch. And so that's kind of weird. Like there's no mystery, I find, with artists. I mean, it's got its pros and its cons. It all depends on how you look at it. For people who want to just do their own thing and be self-made, it's a great platform for that. There's many negative things about it. There's many positive things about it. For me personally, I don't even really know. It's a great way for me to promote my events and to stay in touch with people and for like people to see what I'm doing. I don't know. That's about it, really.
Yeah, I've kind of felt like a resistance to it. Facebook I loved. I felt like that was the perfect time for me. I was right in the thick of everything. In fact, shameless self-promoter, creating my fan pages,
I
doing all
like
that on
MySpace and Friendster.
Well, MySpace Gaga started on. So that
Yeah,
was, yeah, that was, I don't remember Friendster. What was Friendster?
for reals.
No, I remember MySpace. MySpace, I
Oh,
was like 18. I
Friendster
remember
was,
Nextopia.
I don't know that one. It
Okay.
for people of my age and generation, we started with Friendster. I don't even remember what year it was, but that was like the first Facebook, basically. And then it turned to MySpace, which was really great. And I had a Michael Venus and a Cotton Venus profile because I was doing music at that time and all that. And then I guess it was 2007 that Facebook started, something like that.
2006, 2007, 2007 sounds right.
Yeah.
Same
So
same
that's
year
kind of,
Britney had her, moment.
oh, right. And she shaved her head. She became the
Yeah.
way. Yeah. So, yeah, that's what Friendster was.
Okay. It sounds familiar. Never went on
I
it.
can't
Another
believe you
history
don't even
lesson.
know what Friendster is. That's so weird.
Well, like it sounds familiar, but I definitely wasn't on it. I had Nexopia. My name was Peblo because back then I thought there's nothing cooler than cocaine. And, at the age of 16, let me make sure everybody knows that, even though I hadn't even done it at that point. But yeah, Courtney Love. Um, so tell me about this documentary. Like,
Yes.
tell me about the how it all came to be. Give me the thing.
Okay, so the film is called Venus Envy, the House of Venus story, and it basically chronicles from a little bit before we formed until now. So it was something that because I had probably 15 years ago started digitizing VHS and Super 8 and all of these old films and scanning photos. So I was building this big, like digitizing the archive with the intention of doing something. And Wiggle kept growing and growing, and I was at Never Apart. So it just made sense. We had an exhibition celebrating 25 years of House of Venus and Wiggle. Then we had all these celebrations, and it just made sense that this is the story of this movie. So it basically takes us on a journey as we prepare for these big Wiggle 25 celebrations, and make it all happen. And then interviewing all the folks who have been in the show, because it was a big reunion 5 years ago as well, where folks from all over the world were coming, and we had like Amanda Lepore, and we did an exhibition and a big Wiggle fashion show during the Terry Mugler exhibit at the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts. And Terry Mugler came to the Never Apart and like saw the exhibit. It's just this full circle moment because Terry Mugler was one of our biggest influences when we started, him and Jean-Paul Gaultier, with all the wearable art. So it was just like a natural thing with all these, monumental anniversaries. Now it's Wiggle 30 because that thing COVID kind of screwed
Oh,
things up.
right.
And so we didn't release it when we were originally going to, which I think is fine. So it's basically sharing that story with all of the different collaborators who've been involved over the last 30 years, talking about their experiences. Some of the stars that, have become friends are in it as well. And it's just really a time capsule celebrating what was happening with all of us and in Canada and beyond. Um, which was so cool. And I'm just so excited that it's going to get out into the world. So I don't know if that really describes the film terribly
It
well.
does. Yeah, yeah, it does. How long did it take to film? Like, what was it? How long did it take to film? And what was it like reaching out to people and like reliving the stories through the interviews and like really, because you can lie on your couch and think back, oh, that was so fun. Oh, that was so cool. I'm really proud of that moment. But when you have somebody who was there and was a witness and was there, and then you have them in front of you and there's a camera and you're like, take me back. What
Yeah.
was
I
that
mean, it's
like?
amazing. It's been amazing reliving these moments and just seeing how different the world is, how different we all are because we've obviously aged and grown, how different the drag scene, the club scene, just how much has changed because things are so different. Like especially with the way technology is developing so fast and communication is just so hurried. It's like 10 years ago is so different, but like 30 freaking years ago, like it was a
Fuck.
different world. So it's great to celebrate the fact that a lot of us are still here. It's sad because a lot of us aren't. We lost
Eh,
a lot, and we talk about that too, and that's one of the sad parts, but it's reality. And when you're dealing with club culture, there are fatalities because it's like sadly there is addiction issues, and
yeah.
you're a sensitive soul, you get affected by that stuff. So there's sadness to it all too. There's good and bad when looking back. But filming, it took like a few years. Like we really went heavy in 2019. That was the 25th anniversary where we had all of these big events happen and the art exhibit happened. So that's when a lot of folks came to Montreal to celebrate all of that stuff. So yeah, it's taken that long. So it
It's a
literally
long
took
time.
30 years, but it's I would say 5 years with the editing and all of that stuff and just wrapping it.
The event coming up. Tell me about that process. I mean, you've done so many Wiggles, 30 at least. How are you putting it together? Like, what was your approach? Because I think the film in itself would have been enough to get people to come out and see it. It's really exciting. People are going to want to, like, people who don't know will want to come take a look at what happened, and people who are part of it are probably chomping at the bit, cannot wait to see it. But you also added on a fashion show and a bunch of live performances. So why? Why not just make it the film debut?
Um, because it's the 30th year of Wiggle as well. That's why I just felt it was like, let's do it. And when we did the premiere, we did it in Montreal for the Imogen Nation LGBTQ Film Festival. We were the closing film, and I just had this vision. I actually didn't want to talk. I don't want to talk after the
What?
I don't want to do a Q&A, so I'm like, I'm going to do a show instead because it's like the movie and all of this art speaks for itself. I'm going to be a frazzled, stressed out mess. I'm not going to
Yeah.
be in this form to talk. So it's like, I want to do a show. And it's just like, this is like the reunion of all reunions in Vancouver, like with Dickie coming back and everyone else coming back, where it's like, we have to do a wiggle with it. It's just makes sense. And it's also like, I want to kind of take away, when you're experiencing it in the theater, I want you to feel you're a part of the movie and a part of it all because so many people were. So I like that element of having the performance and the fashion and all of it together and kind of like, being inspired by something like Rocky Horror, where there's this audience participation and all of that. Like,
Oh,
I just want that because there's a lot of music and fashion and visuals. So it's just like, why not let that spill off the screen into the audience as well? So that's why it's going to be such like an amazing, amazing moment.
I love that it's daytime, honey. I
Day
love that.
Matinee vibe. Well, the only dates that were available during that week at the Rio was the Sunday. And I was like, you know what? I had this vision of doing a matinee because then folks from the island and people that are adults have to work the next day. So it's like
And sleep.
no excuses. You can come, it's safe, and you can be home and things are fine. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm super stoked. And it's really great because it is another full circle. Like Corrine with the Rio, this has been her baby. It's amazing. Corrine is one of the first people House of Venus met when we moved to Vancouver. And she's in
Wow.
our very first fashion shows. And she's in the movie. There's tons of clips. She's in some of the Super 8 film series. She plays Wonder Woman and all of this stuff. So it's really awesome to have her be a part of this, and they've been so great there. It's just literally this full circle Vancouver extravaganza of a moment that I'm so excited for.
How did you choose the performers?
I chose the performers based on folks who had been in Wiggle before. Um, and so I wanted to choose sort of a varied um, group of folks who would kind of represent different eras. I see you like the 2000s, and who are part of it. We've got Mina, Simone, and Carlotta, who are all in the very first Vancouver Wiggle. So it's like,
Holy fuck.
yeah, and then Quana and yourself kind of started like midway, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Like when the Wiggle 16 at the Penthouse, if I
Yeah.
right.
That wait. That night I performed in a giant picture frame. That night I met so many people that changed everything. I think I met Maxwell that night. I met Rami, who ended up doing all my music videos, and it was so unexpected. loved performing at a strip club, but
Yeah,
that night was changed everything for me.
that's so awesome. And yeah, so that's, that's almost halfway. You and Kwana have both been involved almost halfway. It's so
Oh
crazy.
my God, me and Kwanzaa, here we go. Back
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
We got some journeys, honey. Um, okay, great. The movie's gonna be great. I'm so excited to see it. When you look back over your career so far, what is one of the highlights that you think, man, that was the damn thing.
I think surviving. I
Oh
think
my
making
God.
it through. I mean, that's the thing I'm most happy about. But I mean, there's so many moments, and so many collaborations. It really depends, like what do you mean? What are you talking about? What do you mean? Um,
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's so much to consider. You're right.
like there's so many great wiggle moments as far as performances or celebrities who attended or things like that. There's like so many great Cotton and Venus Girl moments. There's great film moments. I don't know. There's so many different things, but I think it's the main thing is just like bringing people together and having friends for decades that share a similar vision and just literally still trying to make the world a better place.
Ugh, that's so wholesome. I love that. It's such a nice, beautiful message, like
It is
she's an
love.
angel.
I mean, I'm not an angel. I've got like a lot of like, other sides that I don't necessarily want to show on a podcast interview, my very first
Today.
one.
That'll
But
be the Peter Breeze and Michael Venus After Dark.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I don't know if I even answered that.
You totally did. Looking forward, the future. As you said, we're not dead yet. I keep saying I'm so old. I'm only 38. I can't imagine like as the decades go by, like every day you wake up, it's the most youthful and young you're ever gonna be again. I keep telling myself that. So
Right.
you
So
just need to like do the damn thing. So tell me about your what you're looking towards. What's the vision? How do you keep going? Tell me more.
yeah, well, I don't think I'm ever going to stop what I'm doing. I mean, at this point, it's like we've made it to Wiggle 30. There's a possibility it goes to Wiggle 50. Who knows? It's many more
That would be
years.
so cool.
It would be so cool. I mean, I have a bunch of really cool film projects that I'm working on. I want to bring Cotton back. I She's not coming this time. Because
Uh,
she's her own production. That's the thing. It's
I
like people
can,
go, why are
yeah,
you in drag? It's like, honey, it's my film. I'm putting on a
yeah.
show. It's a reunion to do drag on top of that. It's just I can't. I'm not like I have to take time to do the drag and be ready for it. So I don't know what vehicle it will be that Cotton returns, but I do want to at least do something. So there's that. I don't know. I've been living in Montreal now for 9 years. We did Never Apart for 7 years. And I've been doing Age of Union Center for 2. And I think it's going to be safe to say when this interview comes out that we are closing Age of Union Center. Yeah, big
Oh my
change.
God.
Age of Union, the environmental nonprofit, will continue, but me as director and chief curator, that comes to a close. So it's like the possibilities are wild. I don't know. I really want to start writing. I've been putting that off, so that's something I want to start doing, short stories, and then see where that goes. Just working on myself. I want to travel more and just keep on doing what I'm doing.
There's a lot of like changing, shifting of the tides energy with you right now, like the homecoming, the closing of the job, and it's like you're in Montreal, you're coming back at least for a visit. Who knows what's happening after that? And the consideration of
Who knows?
who knows? Not me. Yeah, that's like there's a lot going on with you. It's like that exciting shift of like what's gonna happen next, brand new chapter, and your head's in a good place. You're just like, we'll see. There's a lot going on, obviously, creatively with you, so you just keep letting it out.
Yeah, I will. I can't stop.
Last question.
Yeah,
Would you do audition for Drag Race as Cotton?
I don't think so.
Why?
I'm not a reality contest personality. I don't think I'd be good at it. I don't know. It's not the anxiety. I'm often an overthinker, so I don't think I would sleep during the whole process. I don't really think that's for me. I love it. I think it's great. Um, and it's
We'll see,
definitely
honey.
it's changed the landscape of drag for the better, for the worse, both. it changes. It depends on who you talk to. I'm of a era where, Lady Bunny, Sherry Vine, queens who really did it themselves and had to push it to travel to get their stuff out there. So I love that era of drag and I love the new stuff too. It's very different. I just don't think me personally would be very good on a reality TV show.
They
Um,
had Kit and Caboodle last season on Canada's Drag Race. Hysterical was from like that. Oh my
yeah.
God.
And I love that there is someone that's not in their 20s on it. I mean, they've had
Yeah.
people who are in their 30s and 40s. So to have someone, I think she was 58, amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I like that Drag Race, the brand is sort of expanding and letting in trans men, trans women, cis women. And
Mhm.
so it's getting there, right? And that's really cool. But is it for me?
You
I don't.
never know. Like I'm having this vision of Cotton coming back and it just being such a celebration. And then when that wave comes and it takes you, the,
You
the
know,
inspiration may strike and you'll be sending in the damn tapes and fucking Drag Race season 6 Canada. We
yeah.
see Miss Cotton with the damn crown.
Never say never. Never say never.
Never say never apart.
Never say never.
Okay, I know I said that was the last question, but I actually have
Yeah.
another last question. Um, People listening to this interview may be on the precipice of their own creative journey. Maybe they're young and they're looking at nightlife or they're looking at drag or maybe social media and they're trying to think of, how can I make their mark? And hearing a story like yours, because I know this happened to me, it can be so big and expansive. And you have this little idea in your head, like maybe I should do drag, maybe I should do music. And it's beyond comprehension how big and magical your journey can be if you follow that. So
Yeah.
what would your advice be for people who are listening, like, oh God, I want to do it?
Well, it's like, we're put on this earth to do something. We're not put on this earth to just pay bills and work for a corporation and stuff like that. Those things that you're feeling, that excitement, that's your passion. That's what you have to do. That's why you're on this earth. So do it. I mean, I hope that's kind of what this film represents to people too. It's like, if you want something to happen, that means you do it. And it's like, just keep doing it. The longer you work at something, the bigger it grows and the more ripples and effects it has on others
Ugh,
and the more people want to be a part of it, right? We're putting out energy, so you want the energy to come back. It's like a boomerang, right? And you want it
ugh.
to be magical. So I think that people just, if you've got a passion in you and it keeps like kind of scratching at you, reminding you, it's like you have to indulge and like explore that. Because so
That's
many
what you've
people,
given.
so many
Mhm.
people live with such huge regrets, right? Like most people sadly live with huge regrets because they're not actually living their full potential. Not like I am either. Like I've got my things to sort out, but it's like be grateful for what you have and just keep going and just do it. Like it's like hilarious when you look at the early stuff we were doing. It's like crap. We kept doing it because it's like this is what we wanted to do, and then you evolve, you get polished, and you keep going. So it's like my advice is to like get to it. Don't procrastinate. Don't keep it all in your head. Let it out.
Yeah. That's what you've given me. You've given me that gift. Definitely, now that I'm a part of the next Wiggle 30. And I can tell people out there that it's okay to also stop and take breaks and like calm down and reorganize your thoughts and come back to it because I never thought I would perform again. I never thought even walking in Wiggle, which is why you reached out to me. I was like, I couldn't imagine. Well, I thought it was at night. I can't imagine staying up past 8, honey. So I just couldn't visualize even though I had the creative urge sometimes, I could not visualize my lifestyle now incorporating it, but you have given me that ability to step forward and like explore that again. So thank you.
You're welcome. I'm so excited that you're going to be on the stage again, and
Oh,
hopefully
honey.
it'll reignite something in you because, I've seen you on your journey. We had some wonderful times in Toronto when you definitely pushed that side of your being away, the creative, performing side,
Yeah,
but why not bring it back? You're a star. It's in you. So it's like,
thank you.
work it out here.
I got some shit planned, honey. There's gonna be visuals, there's gonna be dancers, there's gonna be fireworks. I'm gonna be breathing fire. I'm gonna turn myself into a knot, cut my head off
Oh my
fakely.
God.
I'm gonna just
Ah,
and that's only the first 30 seconds, honey.
shit.
Okay,
Oh,
okay.
goodness.
Where can people buy tickets?
So people can go to the Facebook event or go to the Rio, their website. I
TheRio.com, the Rio.
might be
Google
.ca.
the Rio.
You go to the Rio, tickets are there. They're selling fast. You can also get them at the door. They're a little more expensive. Definitely try to get your tickets in advance. Peter's gonna put a little tag or something right
Yeah.
here. something like
There's
that.
yeah, it's the riotheater.ca, and I do see Wiggle House of Venus posted here. So yeah, go there.
Venus
We'll put it in.
Envy. Look for your
Mhm.
Venus Envy tickets. And also for folks coming, we are going to maybe the day of or maybe a week before, we're going to let people know there's going to be a couple after parties. We're going to be doing something at a restaurant where people can get their food on and just kind of catch up, because it's going to be, again, like a chance for folks to catch up after so long and reminisce. And then Dickie and Leanne are planning a little nightlife adventure that Sunday night
Oh
for folks
shit.
who feel like indulging and don't have to work the next morning. So that'll be really fun, and we'll be making those announcements soon. And I'm also really excited for the fashion segments of the show, because we've got a lot of our old school models coming back, including you. So
Tell
it's
me
going to be,
about them.
oh, well, gosh, we've got Bimby, who's around, and she's been modeling for us for like 25 years. Amadou, Lady Kathlena, Lady K, who's one of the original Venus girls, cisgendered woman. She's a famous New York spray paint artist, street artist,
Ooh.
coming back. Yeah, there's like a lot of the old school. So it's going to be fun.
Scary.
Scary but fun. I know. I'm like, ah.
I know it's going to be great. Okay, this was well worth the wait, darling. Thank you for an hour of your precious time.
You.
It's going to be a great event. I'm so excited to be a part of it, and I can't wait to see the movie. I know it's just going to light people up. So thank you.
Thank you. Mwah. Venus Envy.